the person that we have with us for office hours. Before we jump into that, I have promised Kinsey that I will remember some housekeeping at the top of this office hours, and that is to invite you all to our anniversary party. So Ride IQ turns 1 year old exactly on August 17th, and that is the date of our anniversary party. That's a Wednesday. It's happening at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So mark your calendars now. More information will be coming out. But what I can tell you is that there's a scavenger hunt the entire week leading up to that anniversary party. And every day there will be a different challenge with a giveaway associated with it. And every giveaway prize is awesome. And there's a grand prize that will absolutely blow you away. So I'll leave you with that for now. More information will be coming out, but please mark your calendars because August 17th will be a blast. And we're so excited that we're a year into this and so happy with how the past year has gone. So please join us in celebrating that. And with that, back to your regularly scheduled programming, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight and introduce our most recent Ride IQ coach, which, speaking of blown away, like I'm so blown away and excited to have her on our team. It's Reese Koffler-Stanfield. Reese is a USDF FEI Certified Instructor, and she's also a Diamond Award winner, which maybe embarrassingly had to look up what that is, but also look up the list of people who have achieved it. It's an incredibly short list. So you've heard that people achieve their USDF bronze, silver, and gold medals. Reese has done that. She also achieved the associated freestyle bars for each of those levels. So that's 6 awards and 1 diamond award for doing all 6. Reese, you can correct me if I explained that wrong. But
no, you were great. Made me blush a little. Actually, not gonna lie.
Now I know what it is, and now I know someone who's achieved it. Reese owns a farm called Maple Crest Farm in Georgetown, Kentucky. She lives there with her husband, Travis, their dog, Winston, and her horses. And it just sounds very lovely. So Reese, first of all, thank you for being here tonight, of course, and taking time to teach us more about how to be great dressage riders. But thank you for joining the Ride IQ coaching team too, because that really couldn't make me happier.
Well, you girls, first of all, I'm blushing. And I do have my Winston right next to me. He's a very good podcaster. He is always with me when I record. So sometimes you hear him in the background, but this has been such a fun adventure. We met at Land Rover. I just happened to walk up and say, hey, I think you girls and I will do well together because of what I do with the podcast for the Dressage radio show. So I kind of just said hi. And that's sort of the way I like to do things and just introduce myself. And we started chatting and we're like, wait, this could really be fun. So that started, I guess, at the end of April. And here we are. And it's been really fun to teach on Ride IQ. I have to shut everything sort of down. And my horses and I are just in the ring. And it's been a fun adventure. So thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to hear that. And you did just mention something that is also very important for me to include, which is you're the host of the Dressage radio show, which is the official podcast of the USDF. And you just had your 10-year anniversary with that.
Congratulations on your 1 year. That is huge. I know what that means and every sort of milestone that you have. So I'm going to try and make the birthday party because that sounds like so much fun. But it is. And congratulations, you guys, too. It's this is all new for all of us, and it's quite an adventure. I never thought we would go 10 years. I signed up for 3 months when we started the podcast, and it's grown. And I mean, people keep saying, like, how do you find content 10 years in about dressage? And I was like, everybody has a story. And that's the one thing that I like about what we do is, we try to tell all the stories from show managers to grooms to, Olympic riders. They're really fun to interview. I still get nervous. But that's our goal, is just to tell everybody's story within the industry and teach a little bit. And hopefully I think a lot of people that listen to our podcast will come here as well because they know me, they know Philip, and it's been quite an adventure. And I'm so glad I said yes to podcasting 10 years ago.
It's an incredible accomplishment. Like the duration is incredible, but also the followership that you guys have. And you mentioned meeting us at Land Rover. So just to set the stage for people who are listening, Kinsey and I were at Land Rover for a whole week. The actual event was happening for 4 days. it was such a whirlwind, like not a second that we were off during that entire time. And meeting Reese was such a like bright spot. Like you couldn't possibly forget, because you can probably hear it for anyone who's just listening to this recording and isn't joining us live and watching. But Reese, you have such like positive energy. And I remember you introduced yourself to me and you gave me either your phone number or email on a scrap of paper. And that might have been on like Friday. So the rest of the weekend, I was like trying to make sure I had that scrap of paper with me. Kinsey is much more organized. She probably would have shot off an email to you right away. I think I shot off an email to you like 5 days later, and I had been clutching onto that scrap of paper.
Oh.
But I'm so happy that, I mean, I would have been able, I remembered who you were, so I would have easily been able to like look up your contact information. But it's really like such an incredible combo, because you're an incredible dressage rider, you're an incredible dressage coach, but also the 10 years of podcasting, like talk about a triple threat for an audio coaching platform like Ride IQ. So I'm sure people listening know, but I think it was last week a week ago, we added Reese's first lessons to the Ride IQ app. So if you haven't taken any, go look one up. They cover a good range of levels. So whatever you're looking for, there should be something that suits you. Okay. Reese, tell us about, let's just get to know you for a few minutes, and then I'll jump into questions, because we've gotten a lot of questions, because dressage fundamentals definitely opens a can of worms. And we will not cover all the dressage fundamentals. Okay. So how did you get into horseback riding, and what has your journey been like to today?
Well, apparently I came out wanting to ride a horse. That's what my mom always says. I had one of those, I don't think they're illegal now. They had the little, the little not straps that they're metal and you like jump on them. You sit on the horse and bounce around. I'm sure they're illegal now. They should be illegal. And if you got your finger caught, it was bad. So I started with one of those when I was like 2. And my mom said, like, I wouldn't get off of it. I would cry when I wanted to get off of it. So actually, I come from a horse family. My uncle is a professional hunter jumper rider in Virginia. And my mom, instead of going professional, she could have, but she went to be a nurse. So she rode essentially all her junior career. And I wanted to ride from the beginning. But a really hot take on me is I started hunter jumpers because that was my mom's background. And I am terrible. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's not even positive. Like, I cannot jump. I cannot see a spot. Even to this day, like I can't, like if you put just a pole and this between standards, I can't do it. I can do cavalettis with my horses, but I can't do like anything high. So I hated it and I fell off all the time. And I just was like, I don't want to ride, but I loved the flat work and I was really good at that. And so, the hunter jumper trainer was like, oh, she's going to win a medal McClay. No, I can't jump. So I actually saw when I was 10, a trainer, her name's Fran Horn. I still keep in touch with her, riding dressage. And I said to my mom, I was like, that's what I want to do. So my mom started laughing. She's like, I don't know anything about that. Like, and I did. So I switched to dressage when I was 10 and, I'm 42 now. So that was a long time ago. And, I loved it from then on. Then I did Young Riders. And now actually next week I go to Young Riders as a chef, which is so weird. I feel like I should be going still as a rider. But I'm looking forward to that and, just progress through the levels. So I've been able to compete internationally. I've competed 3 horses Grand Prix internationally. And, now I train all riders, all levels. Literally I can go in from a 4-year-old and then get on my Grand Prix horse. It's very normal. And I'm super lucky too that I train a lot of eventers and now show jumpers. I never thought I would train so many show jumpers, but my neighbor next door is a show jumper and he was having trouble turning and he was losing time. So he asked me, he said, would you help me? And I was like, sure. Now all his friends are calling, which is great. So I'm riding a lot of show jumpers now, which is fun. I don't jump them ever, but just helping the basics on them. I just started doing that. And then when I graduated from college, I went to Germany and I actually went back twice. I was there for almost 2 years. And that's where I ended up training with Conrad Schumacher. I had an amazing experience over there. And then I came back to America, and I've trained with some amazing people, and started my certification. I was 24, I think. I was also in grad school, so I was trying to decide what to do in my life. And I got certified and thought, let me see if I can make this business go. So very lucky that I've been able to do this as a living. And I get to train horses and people for a living. How cool is that?
It's amazing. What did you go to grad school for?
So I actually have my master's is in international commerce and diplomacy. So I got back, and I'm a huge proponent that all riders need to go to college. And I will tell you, as I get older, like again, I'm in my 40s. I take a lot more time on my body. I'm a lot more careful. I wish I had been more careful when I was younger. I used to ride everything and think that was fun. Now I really don't ride the youngsters. I'm not that great at it. My assistant's really good at it, so I let her do it. I still do it, but not as much. And so I finished grad school. And so I actually worked on international sanctions. That's what I would have done. So like what just happened in Russia, that actually happens all the time. So I would have been on the team. I would have probably gone to the State Department and done that. But I thought, I'd see if the horses work. And but again, I think that helped me with communication, not only with teaching, but being able to do the podcast. And I teach a college class at the University of Kentucky called Global Sport Horse Industry. So I actually teach. I've done that for 8 years, which is crazy. We're about ready to start again. So that'll be fun. So I'm on campus. So I do a lot of other things too. Keeps me engaged, and college keeps me kind of in the know and how I can use a computer. But as you guys saw, I'm not that great at that. So I'm happy that I get to do that.
No, you are great at it. Reese is referring to, we were just working on getting the video up, but it took all of 30 seconds prior to this. So
I had been Googling before though. Like I had actually been Googling before how to do it because I was like, I don't know how to do this. This is done. But no, I'm very happy I can do that. And I like to share, again, like we talked about when we first met, I love to teach. So I am teaching all the time. And I like that a lot. And I still lesson too. I think that's why main reason I go to Florida in the winter is that I can be with my coaches and kind of keep myself at the top of my game. And that's been awesome. I've really enjoyed doing all that.
The last company I worked for, one of the core values was be a student and a teacher, and you would be hired because you very much embody that. So you ever want to work for a design agency?
No, it's true. Well, you never know. But I think with horses, every horse is different. And I think as you get older and you train more horses, you learn that every horse is different, just like every person is different. And again, aging as myself, I'm not old, I'm not saying that, but your body does change. And so now I am much more open to different techniques and things to help riders. For example, I do some Kinesio Taping, which I didn't do before, but that's really helpful on your position. I use some bands that I learned from Andy Thomas in Florida that really help. I work with Tony Sandoval, Coach Sandoval. He's amazing. And he does a lot of body work. I see him every Monday morning, and I didn't see him last week and I was really sore. But he's helped me sort of with fitness. So, I try to do all of that stuff, which is amazing. So.
I love that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to share this, but we have a meeting with Coach Sandoval tomorrow. We're hoping to bring him in some way because we've heard he's amazing.
He's amazing. He's great. And, I think that's part of it, right? Is you have to learn that as you ride. Unfortunately, it's not just riding. When I was 20, it was just riding. I didn't have to do all the things I have to do now, but, being better with my body and fitter, but also more flexible has helped me a lot. And knowing sort of how I'm sitting in the saddle and, why don't my horses drift right, for example, or why now I look at someone's body and if their horses, they're having consistently the same problem on their horse or any other horses. Sometimes I recommend Tony or I recommend a sports psychologist because all the support staff are what we all use now, which we didn't when I was younger.
Totally. There's a lot of different interventions that you can use depending on where you need help that don't take place in the saddle or with dressage coach or riding coach. Like a different coach can help you be better in the saddle. I'm going to hand it over to Kinsey to do Q&A, but a couple of things that I just want to make note of is one, your passion for teaching is really contagious. I don't know if contagious is a word we're allowed to use in a positive way anymore, but it's very contagious. And I love that you just don't seem to have an ego around it. Like the first time we spoke to you, you're like, I love teaching all levels, which is so cool and so special and so unique. And it seems very sincere too. So it's something that I really just enjoy about you, is that you're humble, and I enjoy your positivity. And I love what you just said is, as you get older, you're open to more things. Like, isn't it odd that we think we know everything when we're younger, and then we start realizing like time to be open-minded? So yeah, very interesting. And I'm interested to hear, we had a couple questions that those bands and things that you mentioned. What is it called? Kinesiology tape? That's probably not right. Okay.
Tape.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple different brands of them, but yeah.
Might come up. So with that, I will reluctantly hand the reins over to Kinsey to jump into the cues that we got prior to hopping on tonight.
Perfect. Well, Reese, I'm so excited about this. And we'll get right to it. So one of the questions is, what are the most important characteristics you look for a horse to determine if they're going to be a successful dressage horse?
That is a great question, because to me, character is number one. And part of that is, I've had some incredible athletes that some of them are on the board behind me, but I've had some incredible athletes. Actually, all the horses on that board behind us have all been amazing individuals, and horses that will try for you more than anything. And I have had some really incredible athletes that are very difficult in their minds. Some of them I've been able to sort of turn around, and they'll show up in the ring. Others I have not, And so for me, because we spend so much time with these horses, it is so important to me, the character. And I need to know that I can ride them in a huge stadium, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to have to do. And I need to know that they are genuine and sincere. So if you come in my barn, sometimes you won't see the most athletic and the most I do leave those a little bit for the younger guys, but my horses are incredibly good athletes and characters, not just athletes, but really characters. I found that to be a huge thing for me.
Well, listeners, make note, because that is something that we've heard from other upper level riders too. Character, work ethic, which is fascinating, because you kind of, maybe people might expect bloodlines and like flashy, whatever. I like that answer.
There are some bloodlines that I stick away from. If you're just in general, there are some that I'm like, but in general, bloodlines or breed. I've had all breeds, so that's the least kind of my concern. I'm not gonna. There are really good breeders. Don't get me wrong. Like, I did some breeding, and that is hard and difficult and a long process. I still own the first horse I bred. I could never sell him because he got injured when he was younger, and I just didn't feel like I could sell him. So I have done some breeding. It wasn't my passion. I don't like anything really little, like babies, people, horses. I do like puppies and kitties, but other than that, that's about it. So I didn't enjoy breeding, but we need breeders, and especially now, because we have so much demand for horses, that we need that passion. We need people to breed them. It just wasn't me. It just wasn't what I was interested in.
Totally. I like puppies and kitties too.
Yeah, my puppies right here, just on my feet.
One of the questions I have in front of me is kind of off of what you were just talking about. So they said, what do you look for in the conformation of a promising dressage horse? Not necessarily a Grand Prix level promising horse, but a capable mid-level horse.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I have a horse now that I bought him when he was 4, and he is turning 10. Mikey, Big Mike, he does some of our lessons. He's in quite a bit. Big Mike, I bought him as a 4-year-old, and there was something about him. I have to post a picture of him because he was this long string bean type horse. I was in Germany. I was so excited about him. I saw him and I knew. I was like, this is the one. And I sent him back to America. I sent it to my mom, and my mom was like, what is that? Oh God, he's so ugly. I'm like, he is going to be beautiful. And he is my most beautiful horse. If you walked in the barn, he is just he's gorgeous. He is so I like athletic looking horses. I personally don't love a really long back. That's for me. when I look at a horse, I almost like, my sister calls it a pony back, like really short, not super short, but I go more on the shorter type backs. I think they're easier to collect. I want to see a quick hind leg because I have done some of the young horse stuff, gone to the 6-year-old championships before. I coached at the 4 and 5-year-old championships. My personal ultimate goal is an FEI horse. Always. I'm not a huge, I didn't love the young horse game. Again, I don't like anything really little. Some people love that game. I'm looking a little more for the long haul. I have to have a great canter. No questions on a great canter. I have to have an above average walk. Sometimes you can fix a little bit of the walk. The trot, I don't need this crazy huge trot. I would actually rather teach them the crazy big trot than to start with it. Personally, I've had more luck training a trot. You can always train a trot. Cavalettis, hill work. There's lots of things to do. Big Mike, if you saw him as a young horse, you'd be like, that's why I didn't do the young horse championships with him. He'd have been like, that one? And I was like, I think I can teach him to use his hind legs and lift his shoulders. And now he's pushing the Grand Prix and he is just learning it. And now he's like, oh, I have this power. And that's pretty fun. So to me, good conformation, 3 good gaits. You cannot have a lateral walk. That's a tough one. You don't want to do that because that walk score will affect. In dressage, not eventing, it's a double score. So that can get expensive. So I try not to get a lateral walk, but a great canter is really what I like.
Okay, a couple follow-up questions on what you just said. Can you talk to us about what a lateral walk is?
Yeah, so a lateral walk, it's a pacing walk. So walk's a 4-beat gait, but you want to see the V, the lateral V. It's kind of hard to explain it, I think. But when the horses, let's say right front and right hind move together, that's a lateral walk. So you don't want it. In eventing, if you have an event horse, it comes typically from tension in the back. Not always, generally tension in the back. Sometimes you can fix it or help it, but it is expensive, and especially in a dressage horse when the walk is a double score. So you have to watch that. So watch the purity of your gaits, and irregularity of any sort, because irregularity is basically the base of the scale of training. They'll get you every time for rhythm, so that can be really expensive in a dressage horse.
Got it. That great.
Did that help?
I totally can picture it now.
Yeah, good. Okay.
And then you had also said that one of your most important things to you is for them to have a good canter, a powerful canter. What does that actually look like in like in a horse that's not developed or established?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So when you see a young horse cantering, I want to see the actual, so you think a dressage horse, you look at them, and I look at them when they're like free, and if they can go on side reins, even better. And I look at them and want to see general roundness in their body. So just thinking like you bend a dressage whip, a bow, like a rainbow, you want to see that. And just by nature, because if we can get more things by nature, the better. It's easier to ride them, right? That's why when you look at warm bloods, and I love a thoroughbred. I mean, I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, so I love a thoroughbred. But thoroughbreds, they're on the forehand and they're flat. A lot of times, not always, when you look at a warm blood and you see the canter, you want to see that sort of uphill balance. And you think, oh, look at that athlete. That's what I like to look at. And that's the kind of canter I like. And then if you can sit on them, if they're old enough, you can sit on them. And you want to feel the power behind the saddle, always. You don't really, as long as the horse isn't too short in the front, in general, you'll be able to get them to pick up their shoulders. So that's what I look for. Does that make sense?
I absolutely love hearing from top riders this type of checklist. It's so interesting, and it's so established for people at your level. So Krista is here live, and she asked, what is an ideal lesson or schooling ride for dressage, i.e. how does it flow? Is it warm up and then work on a skill and then review and homework? And what advice do you have to be a better dressage student? What is the ideal dressage student? Any commentary you have?
Those are great questions. Oh, those are like, I should write those down and do some lessons on those. But we'll start with sort of the ideal dressage work. So generally, it depends on what your goal is. So my horses are on either a 5 or 6 day rotation, depending. And the young horse, like my 4-year-old, we work him about 4 days a week, give or take. He went to a little show last week, so he maybe did a little more. But in general, 4 years old, 4 days a week works pretty well. But once they sort of turn 5 and 6 and onward, my guys go on a 6-day rotation. My training horses are on a 5-day rotation, sometimes 6. And I think of those 3 to 4 days are real work. And then 2 days are maybe a lunge day. I don't always lunge the FEI horses. It depends. My Grand Prix horse, he doesn't lunge. He's actually not very well behaved on the lunge line, so it's just easier to ride him. So they may go and do some hill work. They may go play in the field and work a little bit in the field. It sort of depends on the horse, but I think of 2 days of fun or just something different. I don't always love to work in the ring for them. Sometimes we're getting a lot of rain in Kentucky right now, so it's really wet outside. So they're all kind of in. But my farm is built. I have a walking. It's not foot. It's just grass, but I have a loop around my farm. So they all go on the loop. Then I have a limestone driveway. So I like the change of footing. I think that's really good for dressage horses, the proprioception, because if you don't, they're worked on perfect footing all the time, and I don't think that's great for them. I think they need to move around. They need to walk over things and change things up a little bit. I'm a big, if the weed eater's running or the guys are doing, unless I'm going to really die, I let them go. I don't stop them. I think horses have to learn to live in your lifestyle. If there's, to an extent, if a horse is running like crazy outside, we'll go get them. But mine are turned out. So mine work sort of 4 to 6 days a week, which I think is really important. And then, again, the Grand Prix horses, I don't do a ton of pirouettes. I don't do a ton of really steep half pass work. I think it's really hard on them, hard on the joints. I don't do a ton of extension work. Of course, they have to do it every week, but they don't have to do a ton of it because I think it's hard on their legs. So it depends on what you're after and what level your horse is. And I always try to be a level above where I'm showing. I think that's really important so that when you go to the horse show, it's fairly easy. I don't believe in going to the horse show when it's really hard because I think that's tricky. So that's kind of, and then the phases of work. I did a Ride IQ lesson on my warm-up pattern. That was originally actually somebody I interviewed on the radio show actually. And I kind of made it my own too, because I think it was such a good exercise and it keeps you organized. A lot of times I'll see people warm up and I'm like, what are you doing for 10 minutes? You know what I mean? They're like, we need some organization. So I think that is a great lesson to listen to. I also talk about in that lesson how you can sort of up the ante on that, doing some shoulder in, some haunches in, making circles a little bit smaller. And then, so I warm them up and all their warm up, we do work on that. A lot of people will do the warm up pattern. And then if you're kind of it depends on what level you're in, but if you're in a first, second level, we would add in some lateral work, leg yields, shoulder in, haunches in, some counter canter. We may be working on flying changes. So we may be doing that. So that's important. And then we do a cool down phase. And on the cool down, I like to send mine outside if I can. Go for a little hack. I think that's important. I think dressage horses are a little too insulated sometimes. Now, I'm not the bravest of riders. I'm going to tell everybody that. And everybody knows that. If you work for me, I'm not that brave. But I have very brave riders who ride for me typically. So Jet, who's my assistant, who's been with me, about a year and a half. She's super brave. She was an eventer. So I'm like, go on out there. Go take him. It's okay. Sorry, guys. My husband. It's okay. Go on, Daddy. Sorry. My husband came to grab my dog for a walk.
He's so excited.
Cat called him. I'm like, sorry.
Don't worry.
I tried to keep that quiet. So yeah, now talking about a dressage student, I actually love that. I'm going to transition to that question because dressage is a really interesting sport in the sense of there's actually a lot of technical stuff in dressage. So one of the things we did with the radio show, I don't know, I was watching the Today Show, sort of having a cup of coffee, and they had a book club. And I was like, that's a great idea. So we actually have a book club with a dressage radio show. We have a list on our website, I think, of all the books that we've reviewed. And that has been great because it does make me sort of read a book. I I read actually, not dressage books. But it has made me kind of get better about reading and doing things that I need to do. So like this month, we're doing a sports psychology book. Sometimes we do a technical book. And that's been really good because there is a level of theory you have to understand. And it's important that if you're taking a lesson and your trainer's talking about something and you don't understand the theory, you just time out and ask them a theory, or say like, can I read something? Can I watch YouTube? Can I listen to a podcast? Can I listen to a Ride IQ? We have a lot of different sources now of questions. Like if you are like, I need to write a shoulder in. I mean, that's why I love being part of your guys' team, because you can search shoulder in and then get a lesson on it. You can listen to my podcast, and we're going to talk about shoulder in at some point in 680 episodes. We'll have talked probably about what you're doing or your level. What is that first level? What are the requirements? What am I supposed to do? So I think that's really important, actually. So to be a good student, you actually do need to study a little bit. You don't have to study for like a certification, but you do need to do a level of study and independent. USDF actually has great resources for members. They're usually free. So the resources are out there if you want them. And you do need to study a little bit for them, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. I think that's true of like anything you're pursuing. You should study it. What do you?
Can I? Yeah. I have one question just as a follow-up to that. If you had like a couple of books from your book club so far that you're like, these would be my first two that I recommend, what comes to mind?
Yeah. So when you're talking about sort of dressage, Walter Zettel wrote a book called Dressage and Harmony. I think everybody should read that one. It describes the scale of training. Walter Zettel, I think he's passed a few years ago. That is awesome. That's a great book. We have Dressage Fundamentals. I'm trying to remember who wrote that. We have a couple great sports psychology books. Brain Training for the Horse and Rider. I think that's a book everybody should. There's an audio and a print version of it. It's awesome. Every rider should read it, because some riders have more issues with sports psychology or not. There's another one called Ride Big by John Haim. That's a great book if you're looking for sports psychology. I've actually listened to, and I can't remember on your guys' app, who does the sports psychology. Those are awesome. Like I think everybody should take time and just listen to those while you're hacking or riding. Those are awesome. Because a lot of riding too is mental. And that's a skill too, to train the mental side of it. Does that answer that question? Does that help?
Yeah, that was perfect.
Awesome.
And we have members in the chat saying they're a part of the book club and they 10 out of 10 recommend.
They love it? Oh, good. Yeah. Sometimes you have those ideas and you're like, and you guys do have them too. Now when you think about it, you're like, whoa, I think that'd be cool. And so that's actually been really fun. We had Martha from Trafalgar Square on a few weeks ago, and she's cool. Like just hear her story and how she became a equine publisher. Like that was crazy, and that was really fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. So you mentioned, or you touched on this, but one of the questions we received is the collective marks at the end of the dressage test with the most points are impulsion and submission. Why is that? And how can you properly demonstrate these things?
Well, that's a good point. So depending on what level, now in the FEI divisions, there's only one collective mark. And so that's a little bit different. But in the lower levels, there's 4. So think about impulsion, and I'll tell everybody, I think I said it in my hack chat once, is like, when you are studying, this is a great study thing for you want to be, take your test. And unfortunately, USDF, I think USEA is a little better about when they print it, but they don't print the directives anymore, which is kind of a bummer. Because if you look at a dressage test, like an eventer, do I have a test here somewhere? Oh, it's over there. But if you look at your test, you will have your test and then you have your directives. So I am actually not a judge. I need to finish my certification, but I went all the way to the pre-test, and then our organization dropped it and I didn't finish it. But I did a lot of I'm actually not really a great judge, because I think more of a trainer. My sister's really good at, like, you girls as sisters. My sister's also a rider and did all the things. So she's a really good judge. She thinks more like that. I can't take off the trainer hat very well and the teacher hat, but when you look at the directives, it tells you exactly what you're supposed to do. which is really helpful. So, and when you read the directives, impulsion, think about impulsion is a building block for collection. So even if you're in training level dressage, not eventing, training level eventing, you still don't technically hit collection, but you're getting closer. So it depends on what level, which discipline you're doing. But the collection, impulsion is part of that. Straightness and impulsion comes before collection on the scale of training. So someday I can do a whole lecture on that if you guys want. But the scale of training is like our Bible. So impulsion is part of that. So is submission. So think about it, like technically dressage is supposed to be a beautiful sport and it's supposed to be a beautiful dance. You're not really supposed to step on your partner's toes, if you think about it. So that's really what submission is and why people need to be, why submission is so important. So if it doesn't look beautiful, if it doesn't look harmonious, they're going to get you in submission. So you got to watch that. And it may actually affect your rider score too, because effectiveness of the aids is part of that box. So, and a lot of, sometimes a horsefly jumps on your horse and, he's naughty for a couple movements that'll affect submission. Sometimes, you look at it and you're like, well, a horsefly got him, or somebody did a trash can or whatever. But in general, when we look at that, we think, is there something wrong in the training? Is the horse behind the leg? What's going on there? So it's a good thing and a good read on how the training's going.
Totally. So for some reason that just brought up a just curiosity of mine as a rider or a coach or both. Is there any I don't know if guiding principles is the right way to describe it, but things that you try to adhere to kind of regardless of the situation? Like we spoke to Peter Gray and he was like, happy horse, or this is a person that I would want to ride my horse. Or are there any things like that you're like, that are indicators that things are going well for you?
So that's a great question, actually, because I also want a happy horse, right? I do a lot of things to make my horses happy and to keep it pleasant. I'm a pleasant person. I'm a trained diplomat. Like I don't like conflict. I don't like to kick horses. I don't like to be, but I also, it's kind of like my puppy. Like every once in a while, I got to bring the trainer in because I'm like, sparking at people or whatever. Sometimes you got to come in and you got to set some boundaries and some rules, which I don't like to do, but I can do that. I always tell people your horse has to be sound and fit. That's really important to me. If somebody's not willing to sort of explore that, I'm not saying that everything, if there's a problem, I sort of go through the list. And number one is that horse healthy and fit and sound? And, does it have ulcers? Does it, is there something that's affecting that horse? That's number one. Then, again, we have a joke in our family. It'll be a quick story. My dad took me to play tennis. My dad is like the worst horse show dad, not in horse shows. He's great in horse shows, but he took me to play tennis and I hate tennis because he tried to make me Steffi Graf. I'm not Steffi Graf. I ironically am the professional athlete of the family, but I can't run. And if I'm running, something's on fire or something's loose or it's bad. So, and I want to do tennis racket. And my dad's like, it's not the tennis racket, Reese. And I was like, but it's kind of the same with tack. Somebody's like, I need a new saddle or I need this. Everything needs to fit. And I'm a huge believer in bit fitting and saddle fitting. But sometimes I think people are like, oh, it's the saddle or it's this. And it's like, maybe not. Let's check it out. So that's where rider position comes in. That's why, I work with Tony, for example, am I sitting incorrectly that will make my horses sore? Or is there something I can do better for them? Or is there a therapy that I can help them? All athletes are sore. It's kind of part of the game, but I always want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So that's really important to me. That horses are always happy and healthy. Number one. Number two is, is it fun for them? Yes. We're technically all at work right now, but we're having fun. And that's really important to me. It's the same idea. It's like, I get to train horses and people all day, but now I don't train. If people don't jive with me or it's not going to work, I'm the first one to say this isn't going to work. There's a lot of other resources. So I say that with horses too. If they're not having fun, why aren't they having fun? Can we change it up? I think some people, for example, if you're having trouble with flying changes, all they want to do is flying changes. Well, is that fun for the horse? It's like, whoa. maybe it's a suppleness issue. Like maybe how's your shoulder in from when you go from left to right? Are there other things we can get to the root of the problem without hammering that problem? Does that make sense? So it is a happy horse at the end of the day. And if they're not a happy partner, or sometimes people I'm like, maybe you need to go on vacation for a couple days and just put this back in perspective. We're riding horses in circles, we're having fun, but we're not curing cancer kind of thing. So I think that's really important for people to think about.
Yeah, I think that's so fair. And it just reminds me, and sorry to go on a tangent here, just like every time I've been to physical therapy for something, they're always like, well, the reason this is injured is because this other muscle wasn't strong enough. And it's like, if I could keep like hammering on that thing that's not like, but I need to build up the overall strength so that
Yes.
other thing gets stronger. I don't know.
No,
but I think that
true.
makes a lot of sense.
And if you went to physical therapy and they're like, I've got a lot of physical therapy like on my knees, and they're like, if they just hammer down on that specific thing, like it's not going to get better. It's like, well, maybe it's actually coming from my hip, or maybe it's some other way that I'm walking, or, so sometimes you do need to explore that and explore, but maybe you want to go take your horse on a hack and go to a park and check it out. Or maybe you've shown 4 weeks in a row and you want to take a little break or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that mentality. So you mentioned a while ago that you have been helping with some show jumping horses and show jump riders. What are some things that you're specifically helping them with? Like, what are you identifying as like something that is missing in their training that you can apply from dressage to help them with their show jumping?
That is a great question. And I would say also with eventers. I mean, eventers do have dressage as well. But a lot of times, what you're doing in your dressage is going to mirror what you're doing in your jumping. So my eventers, and I don't train my eventers any differently than I train I don't believe in eventing dressage. Right? Don't believe in it. It's all dressage, right? So the levels are different. And in eventing, you don't really hit sort of collection. Technically prelim, you're starting to sit the trot, and then intermediate, you're doing sitting trot, shoulder in, then it gets real. But in general, you're building your blocks up. And if you can't do it in the dressage ring, so if your dressage is that much worse, and people are like, my jumping is so much better than my dressage, I'm thinking, I doubt it. I mean, you're getting over the jumps because your horse is probably athletic enough. But a lot of times they won't, that'll catch up to you. So I've been working mostly with sort of upper level show jumpers, and they jump big meters, this is high. And so a lot of times the horses will have trouble turning, and they'll be behind the leg, and they won't be, and they'll be on the forehand. Those are kind of the top three. So all of which we work on, right? So transitions will help them being not on the forehand, also heavy, same kind of thing, right? A lot of times when the bending lines come in, the horses are just generally stiff. So they need to do more lateral suppleness. So that we do that a lot of shoulder in, a lot of haunches in. The upper level horses, they know all of that information. I mean, if you turn on the forehands, like just actually technically basic things, but things that once they're supple, then I'll get the feedback of like, whoa, I was 2 seconds faster. That's exactly what my job is. So, and it happens I have a good friend who's my neighbor, and we started working together. One day it was kind of raining, and he was like, can I come on a ride? I was like, sure, come on over. And he was like, this is kind of cool. And so I was like, all right. He's like, do you think you would have time for a lesson? I was like, of course, I'll have time for a lesson. So that started like 2 years ago, and then he's done really well. So then he told his friends, and but truly, it's jumping's just dressage over jumps. We still do all what you need in the turns and all that kind of stuff. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. Lucky for him that he decided to come over that day.
I know, right? and now it's so funny because we ride, like they have the property literally right behind us. So the owner put in a gate now. So I teach the owner now, and it's super fun. And they have a track. So we'll go over to the track. And it's been fun. And the dressage horses go within the jumps. At first they're like, but it's been good for them.
That reminds me, someone at Land Rover, and I usually have the hardest time remembering little sayings like this, but she's a dressage rider. And at that point, I think we only had Gina Smith potentially as a dressage coach. She's a show jumper. And she was talking about wanting to take dressage lessons, and she said, flat works makes the course works. Flat work,
Ooh, I love it.
flat work makes the course work.
Oh, I love it. That's so cool.
I remembered it so brilliantly. Just kidding.
You're like, yes.
No, it took me a minute to get it out, but yeah, I was like, oh yeah, flat work makes the course work. So yeah, I thought it was really cool because she was so open-minded to like the cross-discipline training and how that could benefit her as a show jumper. One question we got that I want to make sure we got to, because you kind of mentioned some of it at the beginning, is this person said, do you have exercises or tools you use to help your students have better position? For example, I had a coach who put a whip behind my back and through my elbows to keep my shoulders back.
Mm-hmm. We do. Yeah. So a lot of my work has been, I had the honor and pleasure to work with Andy Thomas. And he is the US physio coach. He works all over the world, actually. And so I was able to take some lessons with him a couple years ago. And if you have a chance, look him up online. He's great. So he does a lot of things with bands and Kinesio tape. So for example, he has a 12-inch band. It's probably, oh, sorry, I can't figure out the camera. It's about this wide. And you put it around your wrists and you just ride along like you're just riding. And it's really amazing because it stabilizes your hands. So if you can, everybody sit, let me get organized here in my little chair. But if you sit back and then you push out, like you're pushing out on the little band, you can feel like, I got to push my hands a little lower, but you can really see it opens your position. It opens your upper abs right below your chest. Sorry, my camera, oh, I can't do it. But anyways, it opens your chest a little bit, but it also pulls your shoulders back and engages your shoulders and your shoulder girdle. So that really helps. And it's just generally stabilizes you. And the horses will be very thankful. They're always really steady when you put it on. So you're like, oh. So Andy also does one where he'll literally take Kinesio tape. That's the stuff you tape your like shoulder and your knees. I had some in my bathroom for my knees. On sand, I'll tape my knees. But you literally, I just get it on Amazon now. And it started the midpoint of your back. And then you bring it through your elbows. You need a second person. You can't do it by yourself. And then take the tape all the way down to your hand. So it takes your whole arm. And if you use that Kinesio tape, it keeps you steady. It's the same kind. The band's great because you can put it in your pocket. It's real easy to do it on your own. And I keep it in my pocket all day. Sometimes I'm like, I can't get connection. So I put it on. It really helps. The other thing that I have experimented with are the Franklin balls. Have you guys heard of those? Those are great. If you look them up, they were for dancers, and you put them under your seat. And it changes your hip angle a little bit. And you also, it's funny, I put them under a student, and there are different versions of them. So there's a blue peanut. There's, they're different. If you look it up online, you can find them. This person's really having trouble turning. And good rider. I mean, she's like third, fourth level rider, like good rider. The horse always did a flying change in the corner every time. So I put the Franklin balls, and literally she went to ride a corner to the right, and the ball flew out, like jetted out of her tushy. So I was like, look what you're doing. And it was so obvious how crooked she was. She couldn't keep the ball underneath her seat bone. So those are pretty cool. So I'm always kind of experimenting with different things like that now. I have this basket, and literally people come in, we'll do a lesson where they figure out which of the Franklin balls they like for their hips. There's different ones, and you got to test it out and see. So we do a whole lesson on testing out, and then they'll grab their little Franklin ball, and then they'll put it on the side of the ring. When they're done, they warm up 5-10 minutes, and then they put it away, or they grab their little bands. So that stuff's been really helpful. Again, I used to think it was gimmicky until I got a little older. Maybe not as fit as I was when I was 20. And it was helpful. So now I really believe in it, and I give it to people as different techniques. I also have one of those home horses. And so I had a student that wasn't using it, and she's like, would you like this home horse? I was like, and you sit on this thing, and you can tell like where your seat bones are, and if you're level, and if you're not. I also am a firm believer in yoga. I do a lot of yoga because of my hips. I mean, all of us, we're all, if you're sitting down listening to this, you've locked your hips up. So, when I stand up, I don't know about you girls, but when I stand up, I'm really stiff. So I do have to stretch every day, and I do try to get some yoga in. I like to say daily. If I get 5 days a week in, I'm really proud of myself. So those are the things I do that I think are really helpful.
Yeah, no, that seems awesome. And 5 days a week of yoga is incredibly impressive. So if you're doing even half that, that's amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a 10-minute warm up, but that's fine. It's something.
Yeah, no, that's huge. One of our members asked, where do you get the bands?
The Franklin balls?
The bands for your hands.
The bands. They're just like, I mean, you probably have them in your stash. You can get them on, at Walmart, at the $5 store. They usually have some. So you just want the ones that are 12 inches wide, because that's about as wide as you are. And you can push out on them a little bit, get the extra light ones. It's just a reminder on how to hold your hands.
Are they like the exercise bands? Is that
yes?
Okay.
Oh wait, 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, take your time.
Don't go anywhere.
This is perfect. We can describe what the band looks like.
Here you go.
Oh, wonder. Okay. Yeah, those are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Describe it, Kim, for anyone listening.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah, it's like a band you would use at the gym. It's.
Yes.
I don't know how thick do you think it, or like how wide do you think it is? Like 5 inches, 4 inches.
Yeah, it's like 3 inches wide, maybe, and it's a loop.
Here's a pencil.
So what Reese did is she put her hands through the loop, and the band came around her hands, which I wasn't sure if you were holding it or if it was. It's like a loop around her wrists.
Yeah.
And this band says power on it. I don't know if that will help guide anyone. It's green. It
Power
says power.
system.
And yeah, it's a loop. So now that you have those guidelines, I think people can probably find it. I bet this is.
I can probably take a picture.
Yeah.
And this was great because you can ride with it. And the other thing is the whip behind the shoulders. I don't use that technique anymore because I have this technique. A little bit the problem with the whip behind the shoulders is it actually brings your elbows too far back. In my opinion, it kind of locks you back too far, which again, any extreme is bad. It's better than nothing. The other thing that we can do, it's very simple. Now I typically have these I have these like stashed everywhere. My husband's like, why? I mean, I find them in the laundry. I mean, it's a mess. It's everywhere in my car, but if you could also just ride with like little rags underneath your elbows, and you put them, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if I can do the camera, but
that would be hard.
Yeah, right. It is hard, but it's good. And so it's. I joke with everyone that they have to pay a toll every time they lose their rag. So I got
balls falling out.
Yeah. They're flying everywhere. But I got some Starbucks coffees out of the whole deal. So that was a joke. Because their next lesson they had to bring Starbucks coffee if they lost it like 10 times or more. So I got some coffees out of the deal.
That's smart.
But, I like them. These are great. These work really well. It's a good way to start. You put them, this will break if there's ever an emergency. They're not strong enough that you'll break them you can pull them. So I do like that. I don't like to tie anybody down per se anymore. I think the insurance companies really hate that. So I don't do that. But those bands work great. I'm glad I could grab it. Literally, it's in my where my gloves are. So I remember to grab it and put it in my pocket in the morning.
That's a really great tip. I'm really happy that question got asked because that's really helpful.
That was Andy Thomas. I didn't come up with that. It has really helped. He works with high performance riders. He works with all riders though. And I thought this is a great technique on how you can really help somebody. You can really help them and do that. So, yeah.
Totally. And another member just asked, with the Franklin balls, are you just doing those at the walk or do you do that in every gait?
Depends how good you have to get comfortable. So I'll eventually want you to do it walk, track, canter. If you have a safe enough horse. I mean, again, I don't ever like to say like, yes, everybody should do it. Start in the walk. They are difficult to post though. So if you're learning to sit, maybe a few steps and then walk. But eventually I'd like to walk, trot, and canter with them if you can. It's kind of like you should be able to ride a Grand Prix without stirrups.
Fair, yeah. Something to work towards.
Yeah.
And okay, so this next question is, I think you've kind of touched on this, but what are some common mistakes you see riders making in the dressage arena that loses them points?
Accuracy, hands down. You know, I know that sounds silly, but at the end of the day, you got to perform the test that's on the paper. And you've got to practice accuracy. So I see this a lot in my eventers, actually. Your dressage people will typically ride in a ring. Now, it does not have to be fancy. You can go to Lowe's and get poles. Like, you can use trash cans. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, but you need to define the space, especially in a small ring for the eventers. That's huge because I panic. I mean, I don't ride in a small ring, and I go in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so small. It's so much smaller than a 20 by 60 ring. So I tell my eventers especially, hey, you guys need to ride in the space. You don't necessarily need to train your, well, let me take that back. You do need to train your test. I'm a huge believer, and you got to train your test. Not every day, but you need to ride through the test because some of them are sneaky. Like we were training, my young horse went with my assistant to a little local show we had here, Horse Aid Live. It was fun. And first level test 1 is sneaky hard. Like, for example, you do a free walk across the short diagonal, and you have to pick up the trot in the corner, pick up the canter at C, and ride a lengthening right after. Wow, that's really hard. I mean, they're talking first level test 1. I'm like, oh my gosh. So if you haven't trained that or read through your test ahead of time, whoa, that's gonna sneak up on you. The training eventing tests are like that too. You know, a lot of times you'll ride a lengthening, you'll stretch, then you have to ride a canter transition. Oh my gosh. You know, you got to train that a little bit because those transitions come quickly. So those are a couple of things that we, so accuracy, knowing your test. That's the other thing is just knowing your test. Everyone will make the mistake once. They'll come to a lesson before a horse show and they won't know their test and they won't do it again. Because I'm like, you know, we don't want to train the test just learning the test. You need to know where you're going so that you can get the most out of your lesson. That's a student thing too. If you come and we're working, which we can, but if you're coming on Friday and you're showing Saturday, I'm going to like lose my mind because I'm like, whoa, this isn't good. So.
I mean, there's so many things to think about during a test, like wondering whether, and we've all been there, and
oh yeah,
we all turn the wrong way, but wondering which way you turn or not knowing what's next is like a really bad use of brain power in your test.
Oh, it is, and it's actually a bad use of your lesson. Like, don't
big time.
It's it's a bad use of your lesson. The other thing that I do a lot of times, if you can, and I can even do it. I only have 1 ring at my farm, but we can warm up in the grass and then go in and ride the ring. Go in and ride the test in the ring. Or like warm up outside and then go in. That a lot of times is good because, you know, a lot of times horses will struggle from leaving the warm up ring to the test ring. So we train that.
Tip. That's a good tip. One. So
train outside, go inside or whatever it may be.
Using poles or garbage cans or whatever you have for accuracy, are you putting those like mainly to help people get into their corners or make their circles round or all of the above, depending on what the issue is?
All the above, especially event horses, because the space is so big. You know, jump rings are big. Cross country, you're in nature. I don't do nature, but you know what I mean? You're out. And then you come in a 20 by 40 ring and everybody feels claustrophobic. It's no different than riding but you're in a space. So defining that space, especially the 20 by 40, because it is tight. But dressage horses, my ring is not regulation. It's a little bit wider. So we even do the same things. 2 weeks before the horse shows, boom, the rails go up and we ride within the rails so that they're used to it. Or, you know, we'll come out and come in practicing center lines. It sounds so silly, but you got 2 scores minimum of center lines. So we do a lot of practicing center lines.
Yes. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Man, I remember so Kyle Carter was Kinsey and my coach. And when he would tell us that our lesson was going to be in like the properly sized dressage ring, I would just be like, no, I don't want to be in there. It's such a different feeling, but resisting it does not help.
No, that's it, right? Like it doesn't help. And I do believe event horses, usually dressage is like the last thing in an event horse's schedule, but you know, sometimes I'm like, I need you at least twice a week or whatever it may be, that we really focus on it. And that's the other thing is event riders have to really focus on the 2 days a week that they get. That's a very narrow span. So that's the kind of stuff that you want to make sure you're ready to go and doing.
Totally. Well, I could talk to you all night, truly, and learn from you all night, but we've already gone 4 minutes over.
This is fun.
Yes, we would love that. Definitely would love to do another one of these because there's plenty of questions to be asked. I have one final question, and that is, what is your favorite part of your job?
Oh, okay. Night check. I love to night check. Oh, my horses are so spoiled. It's terrible. And I'm like, no treats. And I'm out here giving my horses treats. No, truly, I am so lucky that I get to play with horses all day. Sometimes the clients are the hardest part of my job. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I think for everybody, that's tough. But the fact that I get to develop horses and I get to play with horses and that's so cool. Like if I would have told my 20-year-old self, like, you're going to play with horses all day. So much fun. So really, truly it is. And I have horses of my own. Some trainers don't. I'm very lucky that I can do that. And having my own horses, like I have wonderful grooms and assistants that help me. Cause now I don't get to, I'm the worst groom. I love to groom my horses on Sunday. I just goo them. Like the girls come in on Monday. They're like, what'd you put in their tail? I'm like, vitamin E cream. I love that. So I do love it. And my horses are right outside the door. And every night I come and I give them kisses and I just tell them how much I love them. It's ridiculous. It's bad. My husband's like, something wrong? I'm like, it's just kissing the horses. So that is the fun part of my job. So I'm lucky I get to do that.
That is the cutest answer I've ever heard. That is so sweet.
Oh, it's bad.
It makes sense. I mean, that's a time of day that there's no pressure to get anything done. You just get to be with them.
I just get to hang out with them. They're munching their hay. They're so happy to see me because I'm bringing them food and treats. It's the best. So I'm usually in my pajamas.
Yeah, you're in your pajamas. No one's there to hear you talk to them. However, you're talking to them.
oh, it's bad. Oh, and I just walk. My boys are both like, because they're stable together, and they're like, "Hi, mommy," and I'm like, "Oh, I love it." It's true. It's great.
I love that. Well, Reese, this has really brightened my day. Talking to you always brightens my day. So thank you for being you. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for being a coach on Rad IQ. I'm so excited for that to just continue to grow because I know that our members will love continuing to learn from you both in like this format, Hack Chat format, but also like as a coach while they ride. It's such a special opportunity. So thank you for all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited to be part of the team. This is huge. It's like right up my alley. And I was so excited when I got to meet you girls. And next time I'm going to bring you out to the farm with Rolex. We're going to have a barbecue and we'll like check the horses together. So.
Oh, that sounds amazing. We'll be there. All right. Well, thank you, Reese. And everyone else, mark your calendars for August 17th, 7 p.m. Eastern for our anniversary party. Maybe Reese will even make it there.
Oh, I would love to. I got
perfect.
And have a great rest of your week, everyone.